Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We get to finish up with the two gentlemen of Verona today, so this will be fun. Today we get to hear from the Duke in Act 5, Scene 4. So we got to figure out how the Duke gets there. If you remember, we started out this scene with Valentine, who has become like the king of these outlaws, saying that he really enjoys living in the forest, not in the city, but that he really misses Sylvia and wishes that he could see her soon because otherwise he's afraid he's going to forget about her. But then some people come in, and the people that come in happen to be Sylvia and Proteus and Julia, who is still in disguise as Sebastian. And Proteus is like, but I saved you from that thing, and therefore you should look on me kindly. And Sylvia's like, I would rather have been eaten by a lion than be saved by you. Like, go away, I owe you nothing, all that sort of thing. Because remember, as Sylvia was on her way to Mantua to find Valentine, they ran into the outlaws, and Eglamour ran away. Apparently, Proteus came in and saved her from these outlaws. But she's like, I didn't want to be saved by you and all this sort of thing. And he's like, but you owe me some kindness now, which, that whole trope of women as prizes, which they shouldn't be, but they are so often in literature. And Julia is lamenting this whole thing along the way, just sort of off to the side in snide comments. And it gets to the point where Proteus, probably physically attacks her. It doesn't necessarily say in stage directions that he does, but he's like, I will force you to love me. And she's like, whoa. And then Valentine, who's been observing this whole thing, comes out and he's like, Proteus, you're terrible. Get your hands off her. How dare you touch her like that? That sort of a thing. And Proteus is like, oh my goodness, what's this? And Valentine's like, I saw you going after my woman, so I can never trust you again, and you're horrible, and get out of here. We're not friends anymore. And Proteus is like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. Please forgive me. And Valentine's like, okay, which is the quickest turnaround of forgiveness of a friend that has ever been seen. And Valentine's like, okay, and everything that I had in Sylvia, I give to you, as like they're making up as friends. At which point Julia addresses Sebastian, can't take it anymore, and she passes out. And they're like, what's wrong with him? Because they still think it's a boy, Sebastian. They wake Julia up and she's like, oh my goodness, I forgot I was supposed to give this ring to Proteus. And she first holds up the ring that Proteus had given Julia when she left. Because remember, Julia gave Proteus a ring that he tried to give to Sylvia. So Julia is still in possession of that one, and Proteus apparently had no problem giving that away. But when she's like, I was supposed to give you this ring, and it's the ring that he had given to Julia, he's like, wait, what? Wait, what? And she, oh no, sorry, I meant this ring. So then she presents the ring that she had given to him that's actually now supposed to go to Julia. But they're all like, how did you get that ring that I gave to Julia? Like, how did you get it from her? So she unmasks herself, reveals herself to be Julia, at which point Proteus is like, oh my goodness, I actually do still love you, and isn't this great? And they decide that everything is wonderful and hunky-dory. But then the Duke and Thurio and the outlaws come in, because the outlaws have captured the Duke and Thurio, and they're like, we have a prize. And Valentine's like, no, that's the Duke. He's a friend of mine. He's not he's cool. And Thurio is like, Sylvia, you're mine. And Valentine is like, yeah, you come near her and I'm gonna kill you. And Thurio's like, whoa, okay, never mind. I didn't really want her all that much anyway, so you can have her. And the Duke says, the more degenerate and base art thou, to make such means for her as thou hast done, and leave her on such slight conditions. Now, by the honor of my ancestry, I do applaud thy spirit, Valentine, and think thee worthy of an empress' love. Know then, I here forget all former griefs, cancel all grudge, repeal thee home again, plead a new state in thy unrivaled merit, to which I thus subscribe. Sir Valentine, thou art a gentleman, and well derived. Take thou thy Sylvia, for thou hast deserved her. So what he's saying here is he's very not impressed that Thurio, who had fought so much for Sylvia, is willing to drop her so suddenly and disown her and that sort of a thing. But then he's like, actually, Valentine, because you stood up for her and are defending her, then you can have her and you can get married. So Valentine and Sylvia are happy, and they decide that they're going to get married, and Proteus and Julia get to like be together again, and Valentine is like, Sir Duke, one more thing. These outlaws here were good men who were banished for stupid things. So since I've been reinstated, could you also reinstate them and maybe employ them because they're good guys and they can do some hard work? And the Duke is like, yeah, sure, fine. Let's all go back home and celebrate. And Proteus makes some remark about like, so what do you think of this boy here? Talking about Sebastian, who they all know is Julia except for the Duke. He's like, he's a fine boy. And they're like, yeah, more fine than boy. And then the Duke's like, what? And Proteus is like, I'll tell you the story on the way. Let's go. And we're all going to get married at the same time. We'll have a double wedding, Proteus and Julia, Valentine and Sylvia. And that's the end of the play. So everything gets resolved and the people end up with the people that they're supposed to, or that they were originally supposed to. And yeah, it's a cute little play to me. It's interesting in that so many of the scenes are just like 2, maybe 3 people at a time until this very last scene when we have all these people come in. But like the outlaws don't really say very much. So it's really just, it's these very small, intimate scenes, which doesn't happen very often in Shakespeare. Usually there's more people in the room than that. So I find it's interestingly written from that perspective. But I do find, it's got the fun elements of like, not quite farce, but over-the-top humor, and, Proteus can be overly dramatic and all of these sorts of things. Sylvia is definitely my girl. Like, the more I read her, the more I love her. And it's just, yeah, it's fun. It's not really making huge statements on the world. We can look at it now and talk about the fickleness of male affections, especially when it comes to Proteus, who was in love with Julia, but then forswore her for Sylvia, and then forswore her to go back to Julia, just like at the drop of a hat. Just sort of whatever woman was in front of Proteus is the one that he's in love with at the moment. But also the steadfastness of Sylvia and Valentine is kind of nice to look at, and all of these sorts of things. So it's a nice, light, easy to read play where everything gets wrapped up really rather quickly, and probably with more empathy than most people these days would forgive each other and accept each other and all of that sort of thing. But he had to wrap it up and make it a play. So yeah. It's fun, it's light, it's cute. I hope you enjoyed it. Tomorrow is going to be new play day when we start digging into The Two Noble Kinsmen, which is another play that wasn't in the first folio. So it's going to be similar to Pericles. It's going to have a slightly different feel to some of Shakespeare's other stuff, but it should be fun to explore that one. So come on back tomorrow and we'll get started. Mwah.